Thank you very much, and good morning from Connecticut. Thank you for the opportunity to contrast and compare LeanIX and ServiceNow APM. This presentation doesn't address starting a successful EA practice. It's focused on how to adopt LeanIX when faced with the challenge to use ServiceNow, which we see quite often. I won't be comparing discrete technical capabilities, although I have provided that analysis for some previous clients, but rather look at the philosophy and realization of both products. I've broken the presentation into these topics, working on time and have a few questions at the end. I think, having practiced it a few times, I think we should have some time. Over the last 10 years, I transitioned from being a customer, where I developed and supported a homegrown EA system, to using a leading EA solution and then becoming an EA consultant. I've used a number of sources for this presentation, and I've provided some of the links for them on the last page. ServiceNow started with the Aspen version in 2011, focused on IT service management, which is incident change release. The 2019 Gartner ITSM quadrant ranking recognizes its capabilities with its position in the top right-hand corner. ServiceNow subsequently expanded the product beyond core ITSM. It does a great job managing ITSM. Can it be equally successful with other capabilities? ServiceNow APM arrived in 2017 and will soon have 8 releases. In the 2019 Gartner EA quadrant, it has a mention in the notes. It's not on the actual quadrant itself. I attended the 2018 Now conference specifically to learn more about their APM. It gave me insight into their philosophy and also talked to customers on their experience with the product. I did find time to have great discussions with Andre and Jorg about LeanIX while I was there. APM is part of IT business management, which includes projects, financials, and demand management, along with agile development and test capabilities. I've spoken to many people who are of the opinion that ServiceNow is a product that gets you most of the way, leaving you, the customer, to complete the offering. In recent years, if not all, ServiceNow customers have re-implemented their systems to remove customizations and ease the upgrade process. ServiceNow is depicted as software as a service application, but I'd sort of suggest it's really platform as a service. The data row on the chart on the left is database, not the management of data. The process of managing and updating the ServiceNow application is the responsibility of the customer. ServiceNow publishes 2 releases a year. All the customers I've worked with take every other one due to the time and cost of upgrading. ServiceNow configuration isn't easy, and customers are advised to stay out of the box wherever possible. It really needs experts to configure it. Many customers rely on expensive consultants. And changes to ServiceNow have to be governed. Sorry, my slides messed up. So they can basically take, otherwise the changes impact the future upgrades. Sorry about that. So LeanIX is a true SaaS application. I think it's a clear winner. Looking at standing up a system, we'll contrast the approach to stand up both of them. ServiceNow requires in-depth knowledge, and many customers rely on outside consultants. Setup is easy with LeanIX, and partners are here to help you establish your EA practice more so than setting it up, technically. ServiceNow upgrades may delay the adoption of the current version until the next change. It could be 6 to 9 months out. Gartner comments from the 2019 ITSM quadrant refer to this in the release cycles, and also the need for a mature infrastructure and operations capability. IT service management runs the infrastructure and the business. Internal and available expertise is centered around it. A dedicated system in LeanIX avoids that contention. Both systems have user types. ServiceNow ITSM licenses are expensive, and this approach may constrain how many people can update the APM. Oops. And licenses are expensive, and costs have many facets. A LeanIX subscription may be less than the ServiceNow FTEs, consulting and license costs for APM in ServiceNow. Looking at the user experience, ServiceNow isn't renowned for its user interface. LeanIX is enticing, users like it. I've seen expert users struggle to find things in ServiceNow. It makes for a frustrating experience. That's not the case with LeanIX. In ServiceNow, I think training is a requirement, whereas LeanIX is more correctly framed as onboarding. Finding information in ServiceNow is challenging, but LeanIX customers I've spoken to compare its search capabilities to Google's. And there are many examples of LeanIX customers realizing value in weeks, not years, as quite a few cases are in ServiceNow APM. We've covered some of these points before, but let's look at some of the different philosophies. ServiceNow runs business operations. LeanIX is focused on managing the business IT portfolio. ServiceNow is not APM focused. LeanIX won't be constrained by other priorities because it's devoted to that one topic. ServiceNow is managing deployments, the low-level entities that are basically discovered and depicted, whereas LeanIX manages logical entities, major versions. A good example could be something like a SQL Server, where in LeanIX we're quite comfortable to manage SQL Server 2016, but down in ServiceNow it's going to have all those discrete versions, and I think this was mentioned by one of the other panelists this morning. ServiceNow is focused on the data for change, release, and incidents. LeanIX closes the gap between IT and the business. And ServiceNow out of the box may not be enough. LeanIX, it's all there day one. LeanIX extensions and configurations don't impact upgrades, whereas we tend to find that that is a concern in the ServiceNow side. 2 upgrades a year for ServiceNow. My preference is for timely upgrades, not once a year or more. And the best practice is to focus on core capabilities and that interact with other systems of record, like LeanIX. So how do we fit them together? Because they have to live together in the world in quite a lot of cases. And I put this slide in because it is insightful. LeanIX is designed to make the integration easy. It's out-of-the-box integration. ServiceNow offers APIs for data imports and exports. The great plus on the LeanIX side is it controls the flow of data to and from ServiceNow. It's a great model, and it reduces the reliance on expert ServiceNow resources. We suggest that to our customers that LeanIX author and govern the adoption of new applications and IT components. And once approved, they're socialized down to ServiceNow. The focus is trying to get into planning, and LeanIX is a planning system, and then sharing those standards and other information down to ServiceNow. ServiceNow, in this particular transaction, manages the application lifecycle. It can tell LeanIX when the applications go active, when they're retired, and that can be used in LeanIX for the archiving process once we're basically confirmed that an application has been decommissioned and removed from the infrastructure. I view this as a great relationship, and it offers value to both of them. So in conclusion, this is my 5 cents. Obviously, this presentation has a lot to do with my opinions and my research into this. ServiceNow APM is a reasonable product, but it's arguably not the best. LeanIX is improving all the time. In my experience, LeanIX has proved to be the easiest enterprise architecture system to stand up. LeanIX is available to all users, which is a huge plus. A lot of customers are really wanting everybody to get into it. The LeanIX pricing model, based on the number of applications, is easily understood. ServiceNow and ServiceNow APM is not for the faint of heart. LeanIX, like all EA systems, is more successful when it has business and IT champions. And I think the bullet on the left for ServiceNow certainly is what Gartner mentioned, and it's what we see as well. We see a lot of underfunded ServiceNow organizations in companies today, and they're struggling with making the changes that they need to make. These last 3 bullets we've covered before. My conclusion is that LeanIX is the right choice. And thank you for attending this presentation, and we have some time for some questions.
Thank you very much, Keith Chambers. A round of applause. A big shout out to the States. Unfortunately, Keith, I'm not sure where you're based in the States, but it must be in the middle of the night, right?
Yes, it's in Connecticut, and it's currently 3:30 in the morning. But,
Also das nennt man Motivation, ne? Wow. Thank you for having you, though it's in the middle of the night, and thank you. I think your conclusion was perfectly right. LeanIX is definitely way more better. We got the first question online. Why is LeanIX compared to ServiceNow? I think there are 2 different applications, and doesn't LeanIX support integration of ServiceNow, like for the CMDB? And I do see heads nodding in the audience, so it probably is the right question.
That's a great question. What we've found is that on the journey to adopting LeanIX, somebody wakes up and says, oh, but we've got ServiceNow, doesn't it do that as well? And basically, at that point, the customer needs to, or the prospect needs to be able to articulate why using LeanIX versus the APM product. And that's typically that juncture that we see. A lot of customers in America have adopted ServiceNow. And they are basically in that kind of challenge from their internal organization, saying, why do we want another vendor? Why do we need another product? Wouldn't it be better to be integrated into the existing system, and so on?
Do we have some questions on site? We got a lovely audience in our plenary hall. I do not see hands rising up. So, we have one question. Maybe we can just pass the mic, and afterwards we have another online question.
Hi, Keith. This is Christian from LeanIX. My question is, what's the main reason from your point of view why customers adopt the APM module of ServiceNow?
I think it's sort of primarily pressure internally for not introducing another vendor, but not at the same time, I think somewhat myopically not realizing what they're buying for it. But I think it's typically internal pressures in terms of that side of it. It's difficult, I think, for people looking at getting into APM initially to really understand why one is better than the other. And ServiceNow certainly over the years have improved their marketing. The product has improved. I just don't think it's there yet, but I think certainly over the years it's going to be more of a challenge as it keeps on going. But I think the constraints that I've tried to point out today are going to probably persist.
We got a question online. Would you agree that a combination of multiple tools, for example, LeanIX and other deployment and ticket support tools, would be a better and more flexible choice for many medium-sized businesses?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. That's the way I would see it. This hopefully came away from the presentation thinking that LeanIX as a partner into that ecosystem is certainly a much better solution. And we've seen it. It's an interesting depiction. What we normally see is LeanIX in the middle, and it's brokering information to and from all the other systems around it, which is an interesting way of looking at it. I think other systems will probably view themselves as the center, but we tend to find that the capabilities that LeanIX and other EA systems have really position it in the middle.
Keith, we got another question online asking, how does LeanIX versus ServiceNow adopt in SAP ERP environments?
Unfortunately, I don't really have any experience with SAP, but so I really can't answer that question on the ServiceNow side. Certainly, I think SAP, in terms of LeanIX and other EA systems, is well managed now and is well documented as the ways to do it.
Do we have any other question on site? No, we do not, but we do have online. Have you done any comparison between other EA tools like Sparks, Inserver, Ares, and LeanIX?
Yes, some of the consulting engagements that we've had, we've compared the various different products, and I think to a certain extent Sparks is sort of growing up, but it seems to be more in the UML space, and it seems to be, when you look at the continuum of plan, build, run, we tend to see Sparks as being in the build tool more so, because there's this gap between an EA tool and ultimately the CMDB, because that build process is not something that's conducted within the EA tool. But certainly, yes, we've compared LeanIX, in fact, to other systems as well, both from a technical perspective and from a cost perspective.
We still got some room and time left. We got another question online. Maybe you were happy to answer. APM is only as good as the data it contains. Where does the data come from, a typical organization? How do you gather, collate, and validate it?
I think it depends on the maturity of the organization. I think the question is, what applications do you have is one of the questions, the early questions you ask, and then you find out where it is. In a lot of cases where we've gone in with ServiceNow, we will basically import from ServiceNow and then turn the feed around and then feed them back again. obviously, as the other sessions discussed, the typical spreadsheet approach of bringing data in as well. So it's really a variety of different sources of establishing it. But generally, the key activity that I think EA needs in order to be successful is articulating and standing up the processes around managing it. It's very easy to load data into a system, but to keep it maintained, get it to where people are actually using it, and sort of the holy grail, I think, sometimes is how do they get to use it for planning? And looking at, rather than having monolithic applications, having versions of applications and things like that. I'm on my soapbox now, so you better be careful.
All right. As I do not see any questions inside our plenary hall, I'd like to say thank you very much for having you at our EA Connect Days 2020 powered by LeanIX. A round of applause to Keith Chambers.
Thank you. Have a good day.